for communities of color through the child protection system, sort of being inside the system and helping to advocate for children, youth, and communities. And then also have spent quite some time in education, want our babies to be able to read, so I've spent some time mentoring and helping with that. And just happy to be here to join you all in the struggle.
Yeah, thank you so much. And by the way, I'm referring to Angela as an educator when she talked about trying to teach our babies to read. But Angela, we'll be able to visit when we, with your experience when we talk about COVID-19 and the insufficient preparations for educators and administrators to return to the schools that caused you to withdraw, to retire.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that at some point.
Okay.
Dr. James Lee, he doesn't have his
Morning,
audio.
everybody.
Yeah, good morning. How you doing?
Doing okay.
Good. While we're taking just a couple of more minutes before we get started, we'll probably take about 2 more minutes. A friend of mine sent me an RNC statement this morning, and the statement was that, and of course it was a joke, but it said that if you ain't indicted, you ain't invited. I guess we're talking about Steve Bannon's latest episodes. Yes, yeah. Indeed.
As a member of a long cast of characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Well, you know, we've always been taught by our parents is not to pile on somebody when they down. So we're going to have to really reel in our glee.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Okay. So, folks, we might as well go ahead and chat a minute. I'd like to mention in preparation for the agenda, when we get to the COVID moment, one of the things that I wanted to mention, I think some of you probably remember Councilman Benny Reyes. He was a contemporary, he's our contemporary, but he was also a good friend of Mickey Leland and some of our other friends. Right. And he was one of the real fighters in the Latino community. Well, he had a case of COVID and we had a hospitalization. I don't know if he was on the ventilator or not, but I will say that he has recovered.
Oh, that's good.
Well, he is recovering and he's out of the hospital, so that's a good thing.
Mm. Yeah, that can be a long journey.
Oh yes, yes.
He was
indeed.
the power broker back in the day.
Oh, he was the godfather.
Yep.
Yeah, he was the godfather. And I always, you know, mention to people, one of the saddest things about this is that they put together such an elaborate conspiracy to take Benny down. He had a young boy that was about 14 years old, and the family split and disintegrated, and the boy committed suicide.
Mm.
And so, you know, we'll always be rocking and reeling behind what happened to Benny's boy, but my understanding is that he's on the road to recovery. Well, I tell you what, we can, our feature presentation is going to be part 2 of the book Tyranny, and we can kind of modify our agenda so that we can take care of that in the last 30 minutes instead of the first 30 minutes, and we can deal with some business items. And we try to always check in with a one-word check-in. Anybody want to tell us how they are doing, what life has been like? If you can do that briefly. Let's start with you, Miss Brandy.
Okay, Mr. Amawali, one word check-in.
Yeah, or you can do a poem or a statement.
Oh, okay, I'm just happy to be back in Houston. Also happy we have our Angela to actually join us and share the information that she has. And just happy to be able to move forward with our initiatives that we have outlined for a more perfect union.
Jim Lee, Dr. Jim Lee.
Well, good morning, everybody. If you watch the show Mountain Men, then life for me is akin to what the Mountain Men were doing. I'm quarantined in my home up on this hill out in the countryside, and it is just me, the wife, and all the critters that run loose. But we are well.
That's good.
That's wonderful. Good morning.
Okay, wonderful. Sherra, any other comment from you about how life has been for you?
In a word, grateful.
Okay. Well, that's my same word too, and we've already heard from Angela.
May I add one more thing real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
As I'm looking at the book recommendations, may I offer as a newbie to the group Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, of the origins of our discontents.
Yeah,
I've heard of that book. I haven't read it.
Yeah, I'm starting it, and so I'm excited that you have a book reflection component to this gathering. It's beautiful, and I just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That book has been heralded so much. And,
Angela, can you share the information about the book in the chat, please?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Deb. Okay. Okay, if what I'm going to suggest that we do is that first we look at the recommendations for protecting the post office and voting early, and then we'll go to the phone tree next. But first, let's just talk about the dilemma that the post office is facing. And so what we've done, and Ms. Brandon will bring that up for you, what we've done is that we've extracted some language that is used by Congressman Al Green about the attack on the United States Postal Service and the effect that it might have on counting the ballots and the resultant mayhem and chaos that can result from having all of the foolishness going on around the election. And so what we did is that we asked everybody to do two things. One, consider sending a letter or an email to your United States Senator expressing your disgust at what has happened and embracing methods to restore the health of the post office. So that was number one. Somebody might look at this letter and you might have a way to refine something that you see in here, but we want it to be authentic in your own words when you send it up to Ted Cruz or John Cornyn. So does anybody have any comment or response about this strategy of trying to get this information to these senators?
I'm sorry, I did wonder if I'm thinking it's better to do the letter than the phone calls because there were numbers to call also. So is it more impactful to do the letters?
Well, yeah. I'm thinking that the letters are probably more impactful. It's going to be a little difficult with the phone calls. What happened is that the board of governors that are responsible for the operations of the post office, who are appointed, they blocked their emails. So many emails were coming in from the American public. They blocked their emails. And so we had somebody who was creative and innovative enough to procure their phone numbers. Not only their governmental phone numbers, but their personal phone numbers. And so I included a list that contained their phone numbers. But if you want to do a combination or you just want to do the letter, also on their website, they have a way that you can email them directly from the website of that's Ted Cruz and John Corner.
Okay.
I did both of those, and I just got an immediate, response, just, generic response that my comments have been received from both of them. But, I don't know. They claim they'll call me, but we'll see. Yeah.
They're actually hiding, trying to avoid any public exposure at this particular point, especially since DeJoy went before this congressional committee. But hopefully the mayhem that is being forecasted, that we will not have the mayhem around counting the votes. Hopefully we're going to get such an overwhelming result, that will be no question. At the bottom of the page, which we won't have time to deal with now, but the idea was to discuss what would be the talking points that we would talk about on the agenda. If people asked about the comment, somebody wanted some explanation on the comment that he made, that if he loses the election, it would be because it's rigged. So I think that we have to have a way to talk to people with some clear talking points about that, but that's not an item that we want to tackle this morning, but we at least wanted to get that before you to start thinking about what are our talking points in that regard. Now, any other comments, people, about the strategy with the blast that we're trying to get out to the United States senators, because we have probably hundreds of groups like us who are around the country who are doing that. If we don't, we'll just move on. Okay, Ms. Brandon, would you mind putting up the phone tree?
Yes, sir.
If we get that phone tree up. Good morning, Charlotte.
Good morning.
Yeah. So, folk on the phone tree, and look, folk, disregard my name at the bottom of that, because as Sherra mentioned, if you're dealing with folk, we don't care where it came from. We can do an unlimited amount of good if we don't care who gets the credit. So forget about my name at the bottom, and you can erase that, and you can just have a generic sheet. But what we wanted to do is that we wanted to have a method by which, and when we said GOTV is just short for get out to vote, that you can use this as an individual, you can use this as an organization, an interest group. Let's say if you're a member of the Eastern Star, or you're a member of New Hope Baptist Church, or you're a member of the Society of St. Stephen's, or your riding club, be it motorcycle, or be it horse riding, or whatever. If you're interested in getting out to vote, this was the method that was proposed. We still have time to make modifications on it. And next week, we were going to start talking about finding our networks. But now we open for conversation or feedback. I think somebody's trying to talk, but the audio is muffled. It's okay. So folks, looking at the phone tree, just taking a cursory glance at it, does it appear like it can be something that we can at least work with, and you can bring back your suggestions on refinement, polishing, improvement next week?
I think that's a good idea. It'll give us a chance to kind of look at it. This is the first time we've seen it, but the idea is really important. I mean, it's a good tool. We need a tool like that so that what we're doing is organized and there's accountability in it, and we can kind of track what we're doing. So I like it. I don't have any feedback right now, but I think we should all look at it and provide that feedback.
Yeah.
And I think the most important part too will be, once we do that, like you said, is have a session on, you know, best practices, like how to use it, so that when we give it to people, they, you know, they have a better idea of the value.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, well, if nobody has any other comments about that, we're going to have another instrument. We're not going to put it up now, but what we're trying to do is that we're trying to knit together. We are a beloved community. We are what we hope is the emerging of the beloved community that Dr. King talked about. But what we want to do is to make sure that we can knit a little tighter together, that we can bond together tighter. And so if you know a little bit more about my disappointments, my accomplishments, I left off the question about what are your most embarrassing moments, because I didn't want to tell anybody my most embarrassing moments. But no, all seriousness aside, I was basically trying to get an instrument where we can get a sharper look at just the type of things that motivate, that animate us, that make us who we are. So I want to say good morning to Wendy.
Good morning.
How you doing, lady?
Good.
So good to see you. You're looking very fresh.
I don't know how to interpret that.
Well, you know, when we were kind of fly back in the day, you said, well, you interpret that any way you wanted to interpret
That's
it.
true.
It's probably meant like it sounded. Okay. Okay.
We'll just keep flying. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. How's Fred?
Fred's good. Thank you.
Give him my regards. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When we went over what we're trying to do in terms of protecting the post office, but you know how to get me if you need some further information on that. Next week, we're going to deal with finding our networks for early voting. So, but we're not going to go back and deal with that. Now, will you put up the charter and the vision statement, Miss Brantley? We're going to have the charter and the vision statement. Now, this is a proposed charter, and this is basically the core principles that it's an attempt to get to the core principles that necessitate the founding of this loose assemblage that we have. However, it's a work in progress. And so it had been proposed that we engage another professional who has a long history in this process to assist us. And I understand that we have gained her consent. So Sherra, if you would tell me what we're expecting from having, is that Dr. Madden?
Jean Ladding.
Oh, it's Ladden. Okay.
Yeah, Ladden,
Tell us what we're expecting from having Jean Ladden involved in this.
Well, I had hoped that she would be on the call, but I don't see her name. But she is very interested in what we're doing. She is a former professor at U of H, and she is a specialist, an author on leadership and organizational direction, building values and such. And so she has, she said that she would help us get a facilitator for the process. And many of us may have, some of us may have gone through exercises, you know, with organizations or companies or whatever, where you develop a mission statement and a vision statement that's really clear, concise, and compelling. And it's a collaborative effort. And you know, I've been through it, but I'm not the person to really describe it very well. So she will, at some point, contact you, Omawali, or how to use her skills. She wanted to get a flavor for the group so she could pick the right person to help us.
Okay. So what we're hoping for is that this would be the result of collective action. There'll be a lot of corroboration. There'll be a lot of discourse about reimagining the kind of America that we want in terms of the engagement of the various social classes, races, sexes, interest groups. So Dr. Ladden, Dr. Ladden is, has a whole body of experience underneath her belt and has done this for many organizations, I guess, over the past 20, 30, 40 years. So at any rate, she's decided to do this pro bono for us. So I'm gonna ask everybody to be prepared to really participate in whatever process that she suggests to us. But if anybody has any comments that they would like to get to Dr. Ladden, you're certainly welcome to do that. Any observations, people? Okay, I hear Miss Ashley and Justina. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to ask you to shut your mic down or go mute for just a minute. But anyway, we now have the, what our initial attempt was to come up with a charter. But this is by no means complete. And so this is just a guide. So I'd like for everybody to take this guide and look at that, because we'll be presenting that to Dr. Ladden as just a framework or a prism that she can run our thoughts through as we move forward. Does anybody have any comment or feedback?
Are you going to send this to us, Mawali or Cass?
Yeah. I was just telling Miss Brantley, I asked her if she remembered Fred Flintstone on the Flintstones, because evidently I'm the equivalent of Fred Flintstone, because I tried to send this and I thought everybody had it. But at any rate.
Oh, maybe I do. I can check.
No. We go, Miss Brantley. I'll make sure that I'll ask Miss Brantley and she'll
I'll send it. I'll send everything after the call.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Tolu? Ms. Tolu, are you there?
Yes, I am. I will take a look after the call and send my comments, please.
Okay, all right then. Ms. Tolu is one of our really frontline responders. She's an epidemiologist with Health and Human Services. And so she has been buried by working with this COVID in so many different dimensions, but we're glad to have our own on the call, and she's also a global health specialist. I wanted to say expert. I'm sure she's that too. But Ms. Tola, we're glad to have you on today. Okay. Now, Claire, who gave us our mental health presentation on trauma, one of our childhood friends made her transition, and so she had to go to the last rites of our childhood friend this morning. We're going to ask that you lift her up. I think her husband is dealing with a really tough case of skin cancer, where they are doing some grafts and some other kinds of reconstructions with him. So, but she will be back with us. She's a lot stronger. She's discovering a lot of strengths that she didn't know that she had in terms of dealing with this crisis. Most of our activity this morning is going to be part 2 of Sherra's presentation. We have some new people on. I saw the name of is that Miss Stevens, Cheryl Stevens?
Hi, it's Cheryl Stevens, and I'm Sherra's sister cousin. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, wonderful.
Yes, ma'am, and glad to see you.
Yes.
Good to see all of you, and especially you, Sherra.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've heard some very important things about your zeal and passion. And so we're welcome to have you aboard. Bob Randall, Bob couldn't be here because he had an all-day Zoom. And Nancy, you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, well, wonderful. Nancy's here, wonderful. Okay, well, Sherra, we're gonna yield and let you continue to educate us on this this question of tyranny. And I'm thinking that it's about 11:27. Let's say that after 15 minutes, we stop and just see where we are.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. Hold on.
I'm about to give you access. Give me just a second.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, you should have access now.
Okay, can you guys see it? Can you see my screen?
We see you.
I see you.
Oh, okay, hold on. You see me, that's not good. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, so I'm screen sharing. So now can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Great. Hold on. Okay. So 15 minutes, and what I'd like to do is just to say that this particular little book was written by Yale professor, author, historian Timothy Snyder. One of several books that he's published, but this one is just very simple. I would encourage you to get it. You can get it on Amazon for about $6 or $7, but it's a primer on how to not be lulled into making the same mistakes in letting democracy slip away as have been made in the 20th century. So he presents these little lessons, and they really are like 1 or 2 page little lessons of just things we need to be alert for and do when we see them. So last week we went through the first 12. We kind of cut the 12th one short in the interest of time. But so what I'll do is I'm just going to run through these really quickly. Hold on. Figure out how I'm going to navigate this. Okay. So again, that just talks about kind of the backdrop, but the principle here, do not obey in advance, just talks about, and you'll get a copy of this presentation, and I hope you'll get a copy of the little book and share it with people. And you feel free to share this presentation, which is really not a presentation as much as it is. I just took pretty much lesson by lesson and kind of extracted the quote on the left that you'll see on each screen is actually his quote to introduce that particular lesson. And here he was talking about how we can actually give power to authoritarians, sometimes even before they ask for it. And that just feeds their desire for more, and it teaches them what they can do, what they can get away with, basically. Defend our institutions. His point here is that we can't believe that because they've always been here during our lifetimes and our parents, grandparents, et cetera, that they will always be here. We have to actively defend them. He says, pick one and then take its side. Beware of the one-party state. I think that's pretty clear. Take responsibility for the face of the world. That means standing up toward racism, standing up toward economic disparity, standing up for the rights of every member of what we like to think of, what we want to create as the beloved community. And that's everybody, no exceptions. Remember professional ethics. That was a powerful one because he talked about how in Nazi Germany, for example, that physicians, lawyers, civil servants, all pretty much just went along with the program. And they redefined their ethics to meet what the Nazi regime was looking for. And so beware of that. Professional ethics are something that can help us prevent, the kind of tyranny that has happened and what follows that in terms of death and destruction of both people and institutions. Beware of paramilitaries. We're seeing a lot of those. I think that's pretty clear. Many of them, they may seem to be autonomous, but a lot of them usually historically are sponsored. They're funded by some of the same people that benefit from them. Be reflective if you must be armed. And he's here talking to civil servants who may be policemen, maybe military, National Guard, whatever, because they were actually responsible for more of the deaths in both the Soviet Union in the period of the Great Terror and in Nazi Germany. So they did more than actually the Nazi forces per se. Stand out. That means speak up. If you see something, say something, like John Lewis said, get in some good trouble. Be kind to our language. Be careful what we say, be careful what we repeat, because repetition is a tool of tyrants. Even when we want to disagree with them, we end up repeating what they said in order to do that. So be careful about that. Believe in truth. I think the little quote from Snyder at the bottom, post-truth is pre-fascism, kind of rings pretty loudly for me. He talks about how the truth dies. And that's one thing we have to hold on to and know that it indeed will set us free. Investigate, figure things out. Don't just watch TV. Beware of social media. Understand that it's a really viable tool, but there's a lot of information out there and a lot of interests out there that are meant to do no good. So we have to be discriminating. And he talks about reading. Reading is going to be ever more important because the kind of processing we have to do to move ourselves forward takes more than watching something on a screen. And watching something on a screen evokes a certain kind of reaction. And we need to have language and ways to understand, investigate, and express things differently. So here's the last one we got into a little bit last time. And it was interesting. Make eye contact and small talk. He's now talking to us about individually and as members of our families and communities, what we need to do on a day-to-day basis to be alert, to understand when things are shifting and how to do everyday things that will help us be aware of our surroundings. So he talks about this as a way to stay in touch with our surroundings, break down social barriers, and understand whom you should and should not trust. I think that is pretty clear. He says we need to understand and stay current with what he calls the psychological landscape of our daily life. And so he talks about the memoirs of victims of authoritarian regimes, and relationships are critical to survival and thriving and protecting our communities. In the most dangerous times, in point number 3 on the right side of this slide, those who escape and survive generally know people whom they can trust. And the bottom quote is really interesting too, impactful to me. Having old friends is the politics of last resort. Making new friends is the first step toward change. Number 13, out of the 20, practice corporal politics. And I didn't really get that initially with the topic, but he's saying that basically we need to get outside. Now this was pre-COVID, but what we're doing with Zoom, what we're doing in our communities, you know, under the current circumstances is really important. And as Omowale said, and as many of us are witnessing, there are a lot of people doing just what we're doing. This is really, really critical. I think the bottom quote on the left is important. Protests can be organized on social media, but nothing is real that does not end on the streets. So basically, we need to reach out. We need to talk with people who don't agree with everything we agree with. This is really important. And we have to reach out to people and have conversations that at least share our understanding of what's happening and encourage us to move forward. Establish a private life. This was interesting. I think the quote says it all on the left. Nastier rulers will use what they know about you to push you around. Scrub your computer of malware on a regular basis. Remember that email is skywriting. I think our good friend Hillary found that out. Consider using alternative forms of the internet or simply using it less. Have personal exchanges in person. For the same reason, resolve any legal troubles. Tyrants seek the hook on which to hang you. Try not to have hooks. So he goes on to talk about, again, the 2016 campaign with the Clinton emails, which really weren't about anything other than creating another conspiracy theory. Basically, what tyrants do is they try to blur the difference between private and public, because it, again, draws the whole society away from one, you know, conspiracy theory, one, you know, drama to the next, so that they can do what they want to do. Number 15, contribute to good causes. I think that's pretty clear. He said it's really important. And this is one of the things that another way to strengthen the community's resistance and resilience. So it's really, really important. And he notes on the last point on the slide on the right, that in the 20th century, tyrants were consistently hostile to NGOs and charities, non-governmental organizations and charities and the like. Learn from peers in other countries. Keep up your friendships abroad. And Omowale, you've certainly done a lot in that regard with your International Youth and Friendship Program. Other people on the call, I'm sure, have friendships. He says that they can be really, really important. He says what we're seeing in the US is an element of a larger trend, and no country is going to find a solution by itself. The last point really was what I would call chilling. There are a lot of chilling things in here that make us stop and think, but make sure you and your family have passports. And what he says about that on the right, and the point number 2 is that, well, point number 1, this is going to be a long fight. It's not going to end no matter which way the election goes on November 3rd. But we know that if we can prevail with the election, it's going to take us a long way. It'll shift the energy, and we'll be in a much better place to carry forward with getting to this more perfect union and the beloved community. Having a passport, he says, is not surrender. It's liberating. It allows us to see how other people, sometimes who have been in, have experienced this for longer periods than we have, can react, and there's a lot to learn. So sometimes you have to take a step back to take a step forward, is what I got from that. Listen for dangerous words. Be alert to use of extremism, terrorism. Tyrants always create a crisis, or they take advantage of an actual crisis. Because once there is, once a group or an act is labeled as extremism or terrorism, that gives them the opportunity to take advantage of that to suspend liberty. And the last point I think that is important, when tyrants speak of extremists, they're only talking about people who are not in the mainstream, and as they define the mainstream, and even that definition will shift. Be calm when the unthinkable arrives. Modern tyranny, and this is again the quote on the left, is terror management. When the terrorist attack comes, whether it's a 9/11 or whether it's what happened in North Carolina, or what's happening everywhere with the mass murder and the mass shootings in El Paso, the sudden disaster that requires, quote unquote, the end of checks and balances, the dissolving of opposition parties, the suspension of freedom is the oldest trick in the book. Don't fall for it. On the right, I will highlight, because what we're seeing with the unidentified forces that have been on the streets in American cities recently, Portland being probably the most egregious example, but basically people showed up who were not identified, rounded up people, apparently took them to undisclosed locations, questioned them, and then let them go. Sometimes let them go only after they signed a statement giving up, whether it's legal or not, the right to protest on the streets. But that's exactly the tactics of paramilitaries, police, etc., in a tyrannical state, under a authoritarian state. 19, be a patriot. Set a good example of what America means for generations to come. They will need it. And I thought that, and this is just my opinion, but I thought that the Democratic Convention this week did a pretty good job of showing what real patriotism is. I've never thought of myself as a patriot. I'm understanding now how important it is that we redefine what that means, and really go back to what it should always mean. So on the right, it talks about the difference between a patriot and a nationalist. And interestingly, Steve Bannon, when he was arrested, talked about how nationalism and populism was something that he stood for. And here, Snyder explains the difference between a nationalist and a patriot. A patriot wants the nation to live up to its ideals and wants us to be our best selves. A nationalist will say, it can't happen here, which is the first step toward disaster. A patriot says that it can happen here, but that we will stop it. And finally, the 20th lessons, be as courageous as we can. And it says here, and I thought of John Lewis and all of the people who, who basically paved the way for us to be having these kind of conversations and have freedoms that we can fight to protect, like the right to vote. If none of us is prepared to die for freedom, then all of us will die under tyranny. And basically that was it. I mean, that was what he said. And then there was, in the epilogue of this little 20 lessons, book of 20 lessons on tyranny, he talks about how important it is, and we've had educators on previous calls that talk about the importance of knowing history, not being a historical expert, but understanding that things are not always, have not always been the way they are. There was a lot of battles, a lot of sacrifice to have the rights that we have, but they are not a given. So he talks about the importance of seeing patterns, making judgments, having discernment, so that we can avoid the calamitous episodes of history where so many people died and so many people lost their liberty and their very human dignity. So what he's saying to us is it's up to us. And so that is the final lesson. And so we've kind of gone through all three of these, and I think the time is about what we said. Oh, and Miss Brantley, Jean Lanning is trying to join. I just got a text from her. Can you reach out to her by email and resend the link?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. All right, so that's it. So I'll open it up for just comments, discussion, whatever anyone would like to share.
Well, Sherry, I thought this was excellent. I know of Tim Snyder. I think this is really good. The one thing I think is very helpful in talking about tyranny is talking about how it evolves often slowly when we don't even perceive it's happening. And suddenly, and it's been happening in this country by the powers that we've been given to the executive over the past 25 years. And suddenly we see really what happens if you're unlucky, and we're unlucky enough to, which is inevitable, get a really bad person in office. And I think that's because many people in Republican and Democratic societies don't believe it'll ever happen. And they don't pay attention to the small incremental things that suddenly, when you're faced with a bad leader, you realize that you can't do, that even the legal system is thwarted in what it can do to protect the Constitution.
Yes, I mean, that is the message. It's unsettling, but that is the...
Yeah, no, it's absolutely correct. This is very good. Thank you.
Sherry, I would just like to thank you. This presentation was great. And I think we all can benefit from this. And thank you again. You did a great job.
Well, it's really all Tim Snyder's words, and I'm happy that Mwali actually suggested, that I put this together, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you. But it touched me deeply, so you can probably tell that, and it made me really reflect in a way that I had not.
Absolutely.
Sherry, I also wanted to say thank you. I think that as a young person, especially in the age of social media, being very careful about the things that we share and post. I often find myself talking to my peers and my colleagues and saying, we don't agree with these things, but we have to be careful with the language that we use so that this don't become a problem in the future. So thank you for reminding us to be very thoughtful and just to be very careful about the things that we're sharing about ourselves and about and being careful, especially with the language that we use with the goal of trying to express the anger and frustration of the system. It's also important to express caution with language so that we're not repeating the evil that is being said. So thank you for that.
I would just like to add my gratitude, Sherra. I was struck by number 6, beware of the paramilitaries. And I'm reflecting over, I was a resident of Minneapolis for 25 years, so I'm still, everything that's going on there and has gone on there is still stinging me. And I have people who used to be my neighbors who said that they were witnessing cars of people who were coming into the neighborhoods, who were not from the neighborhoods and who were not part of the peaceful protesters, who were being dispensed into the protesters as if they were the protesters and blowing up property. And
Yeah.
so there was so much about the levels, the many levels of terror, that there were people marching peacefully next to someone who was pretending to be marching peacefully, and that person took something out and blew up something in front of them.
Yes.
And they thought they were marching next to someone who believed in what they believed in. And then they were accused of that violence and
Yes.
taken to jail. So there's so many levels of the paramilitary at work in our own protests. And I just thank you for giving us a platform to discuss this.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so important. And some of us, like Omawale and myself, that were involved in the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement back in the 60s, we saw the same thing. We had people that we discovered over time that were there for a different purpose. And often those people are the most violent because for 2 reasons they are. They do that because, first of all, they're trying to get influence within the group. They're, especially the ones who have an ongoing role with some police organization or some other organization. They want to get in because that's how they try to set you up, to escalate the violence and to disparage what you're trying to do. And so they're often, and the other reason they do it is they always want to seem like they're more passionate about what you're doing than you are. So we witness that. And Omawale, I know you can speak to that as well, but so I really appreciate your comment. And I just wanted to add that is that, you know, that is kind of from the playbook.
Yes, and the longer this election campaign goes on, the more relevant all this business seems. You know, the book's been out about a year, and when it first came out, I heard about it, and people were talking about it and whatnot, and it didn't sound so relevant as it does now.
Yeah.
Well, I want to introduce myself. Hello, everyone. I'm Jean Ladding, invited by Sherra, and I'm very pleased to be here. I apologize for being late. This is early for me on a Saturday morning. I want to read you something. Sherra's presentation, the part that I saw is magnificent. A friend of mine sent me this that I thought was useful. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg and key lieutenants have discussed the prospect of a kill switch that turns off political advertising after Election Day in order to quell potential misinformation after the vote is done. So what's that saying is, which I'm taking hard from, at least Facebook and probably other social media are planning now that post-election, there will be attempts to invalidate that election. And how can they not be used as they were the last time?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Dr. Ladden. It's great to actually put our eyes on you as if we were in living color. So you've come to us with I guess, much announcement and much acclaim that you will be able to be of some assistance to us. So we want to thank you for joining with us this morning. I'm thinking that we'll be reaching out to each other so that we can further define some of the boundaries that we need to function in order to come to the kind of product that we want, which again, we hope that it will be collaborative and it'll be the results of a collective action project, but certainly you would be the leader in helping us to get there.
Who are you talking to?
Well,
we just got up for the meeting. We talking about the leader.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I tell you what.
Is this your secret sauce?
Well, no, that's Sherra didn't give you the full brief, and she only let you have parts of the information. But Sherra's gonna give you the full briefing.
Gene, we're all good. But that's just what happens when you come to the meeting and somebody has already made a decision for you.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, it's good. I'm no longer get with you about that. But
yeah.
Also, Gene, you're involved in a similar effort at Unity Church, and I would like for you to share that. When I say similar efforts, similar to what we're doing, there are a lot of people doing what we're doing in different ways, different organizations, individuals. But Gene, can you tell us, and I think you were going to allow us to have that information so that if any of us wanted to join, there's going to be a Zoom event, is that correct?
Yes, it will be. Healing the Heart of America. Unity is I don't know if you know about, Unity is they call it non-denominational church. People, they call it a love everybody church. All are welcome, whatever. And Healing the Heart of America is a program within Unity to heal the heart of America. We've been putting on events for going on 3 years now and have had people come in, presentations. The whites that are there joined explicitly to learn about race. And I've seen some of the most heartwarming, unexpected transformations that I could ever imagine. I'm still reeling when I think about it. The transformations I've seen among the Blacks in particular, we don't have Latinx involved yet, but what I have seen is we have learned, and I'm one of them, how poorly educated about race were white people. And a lot of the Blacks were saying to the white people, but y'all are doing this on purpose and you knew, and they are saying, no, we did not know. So we have safe conversations, we have a book club, we have public events, and now forthcoming is a civic literacy event which is what Sherra is talking about, where we will talk about the down ballot and the hidden ballot, September 12th. And if I can, as y'all discuss, I'll pull it up and then ask to share the screen so y'all can see it. It'll be a 2-hour event. The down ballot and the importance of the down ballot, I would imagine most of you already know. People focus on the governor and the president and the lieutenant governor and the judges, and all of that gets neglected. So we'll have people come in to talk about it. We'll have a panelist who'll talk about that. The hidden ballot is a phrase that we invented to explain this phenomenon. You remember the no labels movement, how popular that was? Mm-hmm. We're not going to be Democrats, we're not going to be Republicans, and so we're going to vote for the person, we're not going to vote for the label. The fallacy of that is the majority party determines the agenda. The majority party determines what will go forward. The majority party has awesome responsibilities and powers. So when you vote for a person, you are also voting for a party. You are voting for what party will be the majority party. So people who like this person on this party, but whose values are aligned with a different party, now have to choose. Do I want to go for the party where my values are, or do I want to go for this nice person who I think talks a good game? And excuse me for proselytizing here. And so we will explain that in a less partisan way than the way I just did, because it's a nonpartisan event. But are y'all following me here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the event will be to discuss both the down ballot and the hidden ballot, what we call the hidden ballot, because what party you're voting for is hidden behind the face of the person you're voting for.
We're hoping that we can get that link out to everybody and everybody can go ahead and register.
Yes.
So, folk, I'm gonna beg your indulgence for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I know that we wanted to stay as close as we can because we made an agreement for a contracted time and we want to stay within those boundaries for that contracted time. So hopefully we'll be wrapping up by 12:10. So I wanted to thank Miss Justina Crawford and Miss Mary Ashley for joining in. We wanted to encourage everybody to do what, thank you, Ms. Ladden, Dr. Ladden, for sending us that link. I've already registered. I'm hoping that I get a chance to participate for the full 2 hours. So I'm hoping that you will send that everybody would take advantage of that link and try to participate. I want to acknowledge a few people that we have not acknowledged. I noticed we certainly have one of the best analysts and one of the best minds and one of the more committed civic activists in this region, Avin Bird. Avin is on the line with us, and I'm sure that he'll be enriching us with some information as we go forward. One of the things that I'm hoping that we can add as a result of Sherra's presentation, I'm hoping that we can get a group of people here to tackle the QAnon and the conspiracy theories that are penetrating through millions of people in the United States, and some people are becoming true believers in those theories. So we want to give a presentation on what is QAnon, and from Pizzagate to what we have now, what these conspiracy theories mean for the population in the United States. So if anybody wants to tackle that and do the similar kind of presentation that Sherra did, please let me know. Sherra has already had another incarnation as an author. And Sherra, I think the next, your next incarceration is I said incarceration, I meant, I hope it's not an incarceration, but your next incarnation will be that of a professor, because you did a very profound job, even though you were plagiarizing somebody else's material.
It was none of my original words.
Not a problem. So folk, everybody should have the phone tree. And we want you to take the phone tree, be as creative as you can, adapt it to your needs. And next week, I should say next week, but that's actually September the 5th. Now, let me ask this question. That's, I think that's the Saturday before Labor Day. Normally, I know that we're all in motion on Labor Day, but I think the COVID has us pretty much close to our racks. So let me ask this question. Do folks have a desire to convene the Saturday before Labor Day?
Is that next Saturday?
Yes.
No?
No.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks away.
Oh, okay.
Do folks have a desire to convene the Saturday before Labor Day?
That's our regular time, right, Omawala?
Yes, yes.
I think with
Yes.
election approaching and we're trying to get the call tree in motion, you know, I would be in favor of sticking with it.
Yeah.
I would second that. I would certainly be interested. It's too important to miss.
Yes.
And Omawala, I would be in favor of us convening also.
Yes.
Me too.
I am also.
Okay. Well, I won't call that unanimous consent, but that's pretty much a consensus. There's no doubt about that. And I saw that Ms. Stevens did something that I've seen on the screen, is that she points something that showed a thumbs up. I just got to find out where it is on the screen, but I thank you for pointing that out, that you were
It's under more. Mhm.
Oh, okay, it's under more. That's at the, okay, it's the top right of the screen. Well, folk, I think that we've covered a lot of ground. I just want to encourage people. Of course, those of you in Louisiana, you'll have to get your senators in Louisiana and send your letter. I guess I should say your senators are your fossils, the fossils that you have in Louisiana. And I'm a native Louisianan, so I don't mean that in a derisive way. But anyway, let's send these out to do the very best that you can. I think that one of the major networks, MSNBC or CNN, is going to do a special on this Senate hearing, a congressional hearing that dealt with the dismantling of, attempted dismantling of the post office. So we know everybody here is going to vote early. Carissa Arthur, I don't know who you are, but will you welcome?
Thank you.
And I hope that you'll join us again on September the 7th. No, September the 5th.
Yes, I definitely will.
Yeah, and we're trying to do a better job on the agenda. But folks, all of us know how to reach each other. And Ms. Brantley is a handoff or a conduit to